Hi! In this short video I would like to teach you how to add your own logo into any play scene. At the moment I have a very simple scene. This is a little pear that was actually created with photogrammetry by taking photos and using Autodesk Remake. And as you can see, the model consists of the pear itself and of the stem. And the lighting in this model basically comes from the selection of whatever preset rendering we have. So whatever you prefer, you pick and that would be your lighting. Okay, so what is the strategy to add your own logo? Well, let me just back up and explain to you how this works. In the render view, what you see now is one viewport. This is the size of the viewport. The pear is somewhere central, and that is this one viewport. Well, the trick is that Play can allows you to add as many viewports as you need or as you want in a scene. They will be like transparent layers on top of each other, and you can tell another viewport to be the same size or a different size, as well as if it should see through in the previous viewport or not. So let's do that and start with that. I'll click on the space bar and I'll type viewport. I'll take that node, I'll drag it over the viewport node, meaning they're now in the same hierarchy level, and voila, I have a second viewport. Well, what happened now? I lost everything that was in the scene. This is because the new viewport covers everything from the previous viewport. We don't want that. We want it to show what's behind. To do that, we will just undo this color clearing of the previous scene and say, I don't want to clear the color of the previous scene. But now you say, how do I know that I have two viewports here? I don't see anything. So let's undo what I did, just to show you, to make the point. We will change the size of this viewport to half of what it was, and actually it's half size in the x-axis and half in the y-axis. And voila, here is this new viewport that is this size and that is covering the previous viewport. So I'll undo that, I'll make it as big as it was, and I will say again false, show everything through. So that's the first step. The second step is we want to add a new a camera to this new viewport, but this will be a different type of camera, not a perspective camera that we usually take when we have 3D scene, 3D model, but we want another camera. So spacebar, I type camera, and in this case I will take an overlay camera. Overlay cameras are special because it draws elements in 2D and in pixel perfect size. What does that mean? The strategy now is the following. I will add a rectangle in my scene that is a flat surface because I would like to put as a sticker the image of the logo on it and position it correctly in space, in which case I would like to place it somewhere in top left of the corner of the scene. Now, if I click on the space bar and type rectangle and drag and drop it here under the overlay, well, I placed a rectangle, but it's nowhere to be seen in the scene. Where is it? It's actually here and it's tiny. So why is it so small? It's 10 by 10, you would say, you would think it's big. Well, these are 10 by 10 pixels. This is not anymore the scale of this scene where the pear is. This is in this new overlay camera, overlay viewport. So let's control it by saying you're 1 unit by 1 unit in pixels, and we'll use the scaling to say you're 100 units big, 100 pixels. And voila, this is now 100 pixels big, and it seems like it's exactly the size of what I want for the logo. If it was not that size, I want it slightly smaller, let's say 95. Okay, I do want 95. So this is great. This is exactly the size of the logo, so I created a rectangle surface on which now I want to place the logo. To place the logo, I have imported a PNG of the logo. It's an alpha channel transparent graphic. And I would like to place it on this rectangle and then position it correctly in space. From the other tutorials, you know, in order to have anything show as an image, we would need to put a material node. So I click material, but in this case, I'm not going to use this realistic material that we used here but rather a flat material. The difference is that flat materials do not react to the light in the scene. And for a logo, we do not want the logo to change its shade depending on the lights of the scene. We want the logo to be always the same color, the same shade. Then we need to add a map node. So when I type a map, we need a color map. And finally, I need a texture 2D node to put the image onto it and connect it with this node. So in the texture 2D node, I will now drag and drop the PNG, and here is my logo. Perfect. You sometimes might get error messages, ignore them. If the software behaved the way you expected it, just ignore those messages. So this is awesome. I have a logo node. It doesn't move or change or orbit when I orbit the object, and all I want to do is to locate it in the right location here. So how do I do that? At the moment, you see the logo as the rectangle was placed centrally in the scene. If we go to the overlay camera, we'll see the anchor is in the center. So this is a little bit a concept that was for me as an architect and designer a little bit weird, and it might be for many of you. But instead of center in the x-axis and center in the y-axis, we would like to anchor the camera of this viewport to in the x-axis minimum, which is basically to the beginning of the viewport, and in the y-axis maximum, which is the top. But now what happened? It seems like it took the center of the rectangle and it calculated minimum and maximum of that center. Well, that's not what I wanted. I don't want the alignment of the rectangle to be center, but also to be minimum in the x-axis, maximum in the y-axis, and the z-axis doesn't matter. And voila, we have our logo, and whatever we do in the scene now with this, the logo is always here, and if you publish the scene, your 3D model viewer will be displaying your own logo. Easy, right? So let us now do the same, but instead of a 2D logo, let us do a 3D logo. Okay, I refreshed the scene back to the initial state, and now I will show you how to add a 3D logo to your scene. The process will be the same, but instead of putting a rectangle and an image on top of it, we will load a 3D model, and instead of using an overlay camera that was a 2D camera, we will use another perspective camera. So we repeat the process. We add a new viewport, click on the spacebar, type viewport, and position the node on top of the previous viewport. As we said, the viewports are now on the same hierarchy level, and as mentioned before, this new viewport now is on top of the previous one, and that's why we don't see anything. And by the way, if you just drag it here, now the scene first draws the black viewport that was empty and then the other one. So there is a hierarchy, and what is drawn the last will prevail. But in this case, let's control. As mentioned, you can just say do not clear the color from before, or we can say let's control the size of this one, and let's say I'll just make it small like this, okay? All right, so now we want in this viewport to put a 3D model that will be our 3D logo and then locate it correctly. So I loaded an Autodesk 3D logo here just by dragging and dropping. It was an STL file. So what do? We first look for a camera node. In this case, I will not put the overlay. It's not a 2D, it's a 3D. So I'll use the same perspective camera node. And then I will use a model node to put a 3D geometry in it. I'll pick the AutoFit model because sometimes you might find troublesome to find your model in the scene, and unfortunately we don't yet have a zoom to fit so that you can find your model, so play with the scale if that happens. But I'm putting here AutoFit model, and now I will drag and drop the Autodesk 3D STL logo over it. And here it is. It's small, but it shows here. And by the way, for the sake of the exercise, let me make this um, viewport bigger, and then we can reduce the size of it. So now I want to orient the logo to show in the orientation that I want, but I cannot do anything. This is a dead viewport because we don't have any transform node to let me do that. So I'll look for transform orbit node, orbit, and I'll place it here. So this node will now enable me to start orbiting the model in the direction that I want it to be. Here is my Autodesk logo. Let's position it correctly here. Okay. And now I would like to locate it correctly on the screen as well. Okay, so now I can resize the viewport to be the size that I actually really want. Okay. And don't worry, we can always change the size of the model. So I'll go to the model, the scaling, we can say we want it bigger. So you have to play a little bit. I'm trying to do this really fast, but the idea is that you can resize this however you want. Let me see if I can change here. Yeah, let's do that. So now that we're okay with this, we'll just say that the viewport should anchor top right and then make it transparent. So I'm selecting the viewport. I'll say it should anchor to the maximum of the x-axis and to the maximum of the y-axis, and we'll like the viewport finally not cover the previous one. So voila, here is your 3D logo here. So that's it. You could have also just taken any object, like this pear could have been also the logo here. And of course, if your logo had materials, etc., you will follow our previous instructions as to how to apply the texture, or you just apply a simple color to it, etc. Hope this was useful.